The following podcast contains spoilers and words like piss, shit, and f***. We watch TV. We watch TV. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another fun-filled week of We Watched a Thing. Once again, I'm joined by one of the most wonderful people I've ever had the privilege to talk to through podcasting. It's Paul from The Countdown. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thank you so much. It's a lovely introduction. It feels like I've never left, to be honest.
I know. Can you believe how December is going?
I can't. I can't believe that we are already that close to Christmas and that the decorations are up everywhere and we bought all our presents and et cetera, et cetera. And the border opening has gone really, really well, hasn't it? It's
so
great.
smoothly.
Yep.
All right. So this episode is a throwback.
Ooh.
And this was brought about way back in October when I had Julio from the Contrarians on the show talking about Cliffhanger.
Bloody Julio.
Mad Max Fury Road came up and we were talking about how much we know you love this film.
I do.
And how much I famously don't love this film. And we thought it might be fun for me to do a throwback with you on this film.
I think it's going to be particularly fun for Julio, then maybe fun for you, and maybe fun less for me last.
Well, I guess we'll see how this goes. So how many times have you seen Fury Road? 5?
I think it's 4 now, to be all the way through, but I've definitely watched my favourite pieces of it at least 9 or 10 times.
Yeah, and I know that I've heard you say before too that the score for this is on your big running playlist, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and that's one of my notes I made, that still, 6 years after this film came out, it's never left my fast running playlist. It still gets the blood pumping. I love it to pieces. This Tom Holkenborg score is incredible. There you go. Yeah. There's my first big positive. Won't be the last, ladies and gentlemen. Strap yourselves in.
So I had only seen this film once before rewatching it this week, and that would have been a good 4 years ago. It was about a year after it came out from memory. And I just remembered being so incredibly bored. I just thought it was such a dull film.
Where's that big call button? Jesus.
Well, we'll wait. We'll get into it. So, Mad Max Fury Road is a 2015 Australian post-apocalyptic action film, co-written, co-produced and directed by George Miller. It stars Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Nicholas Hoult, Hugh Keays-Byrne, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Riley Keough, Zoë Kravitz, Abbey Lee and Courtney Eaton. And what is it about, Paul?
It's about Max, who is clearly traumatised from previous instances in his life as he stumbles across a culture within the wasteland called the War Boys, and he ends up becoming embroiled in the escape of one of the women, Imperator Furiosa, who is taking a whole cadre of the evil warlord leader dudes, basically wives or breeders as they're sometimes called, to get them to escape to a promised Greenland, and Max starts helping them out.
That's right. Let me jump straight into it. I know that you're a big fan of the old BDBC.
I am.
It wasn't quite fitting, so just for you, I had to go and make a new sound drop. So, here we go. Big Dizzle fucked up, like seriously majorly cooked it. That's right, I fucked up. I'm sorry. This is a good film.
Yes!
I don't know what happened to me 5 years ago. I don't know if I was in a bad mood. I don't know what it was, but this is a very good film.
I could not be happier right now. This is, without a doubt, the highlight of my week. And I just want to say one thing before we go any further. It's a big fuck you, Julio, because it hasn't worked out the way that you planned.
That's right, because Julio was also ragging on the film. So I'm sorry to both of you. I'm letting somebody down either way, but this was a pretty great film, I've got to say.
I'm so happy. And can I just say, I didn't think anything in podcasting could be better to me than B. Dizzle's big call. Now we have a new favourite.
I don't know how often that one will get played because I don't like to admit when I fucked up, but...
But when it happens, awesome. I cannot wait. Well, look, I'm so stoked. Well, you should tell us, what changed your mind? What shifted for you in this viewing?
Yeah, okay, so almost instantly, like 10, 15 minutes into the film, I was amazed at what a good time I was having. And just the last time you and I spoke was about Halloween Kills. And so on the whole kind of Lego sequel thing, this film does an incredible job of giving you just the right amount of exposition that you don't need to remember anything about any previous Mad Max film. Mm-hmm. Having a little bit of knowledge of that lore kind of, it adds a little bit of fun to it, but you don't need it. It's just really, really engaging from instantly, like from straight off. You're in this world, and it's actually a lot more fun than I remembered.
Nice. Oh, I can't not argue with anything of that. That is precisely the way that I would see it too.
I'm not.
And as the film went, did it hold you? Did it hold you in a way that last time it didn't, or?
Yeah, it did. It did. I'm not. I do have some negatives, which we'll get to later, but I think the performances are really strong, particularly from Charlize Theron. I think that Tom Hardy might actually be the weakest performance in the film for me.
Well, I would agree. He's not. It's an interesting transition that Max has gone through. So you said you don't need to have seen the other films, but of course most people have who went and watched Fury Road, and he's just not. I know that Mel Gibson's not a good bloke, and we don't look at him the same way we used to look at him and all that kind of stuff. But I think Mel is so much better as Max in those films than Tom Hardy is here. That's my biggest knock on the film as well, other than the completely unnecessary 3D, which was a product of the time.
Right. But, obviously I didn't see this in 3D, but I hate 3D.
It's terrible. It's that awful post-conversion version where it looks completely fake and just so on the nose.
Desaturates the color so much as well, which in this film would be a huge deal, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, but I just find, as much as I still like Max and the arc that he goes through in this movie, from being pretty much completely psychotic through to he really wants to help these women and help them survive, you do come to like him. But I don't know about Max's or Tom Hardy's kind of mumbling kind of gravelly performance versus the much more charismatic Mel Gibson performance in the original three films.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know that it's even necessarily Tom Hardy's fault. I think Max as a character in this film is quite different. He's more brooding, I guess you would say. There's kind of, I don't know exactly what the word is. Like, he's a little bit of a moper.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it hasn't had a good day, to be fair to him. He's
that's true.
His prize car basically flipped over by the war boys. He's been captured, tattooed with all his details on his back, and then being used as a blood bank for an injured war boy.
Yeah.
And that's we'll get to that sequence in a moment. But and then when he finally does escape from that, he's completely on the run with the entire war boys culture, plus their friends all chasing him across the desert. So I can understand he wouldn't actually think he's having a good run. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me, the strongest part of this film, and what I noticed this time, that I don't know what was wrong with me last time. I'm sorry about that. I think the script.
You know what? I probably need to play that sound effect again.
All right, here it goes. Big Dizzle fucked up. Like, seriously, majorly cooked it. I think that the screenplay is incredibly strong in this film. I think that the structure, there's not a lot of story here, but it just doesn't require much. Like, almost the entire film is just one big chase scene. Mm-hmm. And yet there is always stuff going on, and not just stuff, but there's actual true development, like with the characters, with the narrative. It's always moving forward. And I just think that's really, really well constructed.
I agree. The fact that this is, as you say, one great big chase, but as the chase is unfolding, with the exception, even Max gets his arc, as I said before, but you get to these women who are on this truck, all of them are growing in their own little ways. And probably the third or fourth time around, I sort of really appreciated that, in particular, Jason Statham's wife is the very strong one amongst the bunch. And one's a fair bit weaker, and she's wanting to run back any moment till her eventual change at the very end. And Riley Keough, she kind of falls for Nux, the war boy that gets involved with them. So they all get their own little arc. And then even when they meet the sort of Charlize Theron's, Furiosa's people, when they get to the ex-Greenland or just past it, even a few of them, even though they look quite similar, some of them, other than Megan Gale, of course, and what an awful introduction to have a long shot of a naked Megan Gale on top of the tower to introduce them. Horrible. How did they ever get to that? Even them, they're so powerful, and they're so, I don't know, strong women, and they're prepared to put their lives on the line for the potential of a better life rather than the risk of going 160 days across salt hoping to find something better. I thought all of that is so great in the way it all unfolds. And then, of course, in amongst all of that character development, little bits of pieces of work is this incredible production design which sells everything. Like the costuming, the cars, the trucks, the weapons, the springy stuff that they go over the way. Oh, it's just amazing the way this is all put together from the mind of a bloke who was 70 years old when he directed this film.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. I hope to be that cool when I'm 70.
Oh my God.
I'm 33 and I'm not that cool now. So
well, maybe coolness goes up. He did make some dodgy films along the way there, so you never know.
Oh, I mean, this has nothing on Happy Feet.
Oh God, what about Happy Feet 2?
Yeah, on the look of the film, that's kind of actually where my negative comes in. I like the look of the film, but I don't love it. I think it makes some really interesting choices. And as you say, the production design itself, I mean, it's very unique. Like the costuming, the color palette, all of that, it does all come together. I don't know if for me it works as well as it does for other people. It's all very, this is going to sound like a weird word, but very zany, which I know that to a certain extent that's the point. But it kind of takes away from the grittiness and the kind of darkness of this world. Like, this isn't what you'd call a fun action movie. Like, this isn't cheesy, for example. Like, it's played quite seriously. And for me, that juxtaposition with the design is a little bit strange. Okay. Even on like the visuals, like the color palette is so saturated. Like the reds are so red.
Yep.
And I don't know if this is something you've ever noticed. I actually had to look this up to check that this is what's happening. But there's a lot of frame rate changes as well. Yeah,
I did not. That's one of my big knocks on the film. Like, particularly in Max, a couple of the action scenes, particularly the chase at the start.
Yep.
But then also there's one of the fight scenes with him and Furiosa when they're battling for the gun.
Yep.
There is definitely a couple of moments where they speed it up.
Yep.
And I hate that shit.
Yep.
That does annoy me.
That is a technique which I've seen work really well before. The first time I saw that was in Braveheart, where the kind of impact of the smashing, they kind of cut a few frames here or there, and there it works incredibly well. Here I found it did the opposite, where instead of adding impact, it kind of gives it a little bit of a cartoony look, which
I would agree.
When combined with the production design and the color palette and all that stuff, it just takes a little bit away from the kind of seriousness of what we're seeing on screen and the kind of dankness of this landscape and everything.
Look, I get it. I particularly agree with the frame rate stuff, but I think the color palette in this film really works for me.
Yeah,
particularly when they go into that storm. That is one of the most visually spectacular sequences I can remember seeing in the cinema. Full stop.
Yeah, that is
certainly in the life of the podcast. It's just amazing. And again, I keep thinking about all the practical effects, the practical stunt work that's done during those scenes, and just it hurts my head to think how they even conceptualized it, let alone brought it to life in such a realistic way. And it's all augmented by special effects. I get all of that stuff. You don't get a budget of 150 million to 185 million without there being a lot of CG work hidden in there.
Yeah.
But mostly it's seamless. It works so well.
I agree, actually. As a visual effects guy, one of the things that always kind of gets me is the way people hype up the practical effects of this film. And there are a lot of them, and they are great. Like all the fire and stuff, that's all real. I think a lot of people underestimate how many visual effects there are in the film. Yep. I think I was reading that there are about 2,700 VFX shots in the film. And I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of that is plate work even. Like most of the backgrounds are extended with CG. So everywhere they shot was really quite flat. So all of that kind of hilly landscape and stuff you're seeing, that's all CG that's added in post.
It looks amazing. Most of it.
It does. It blends really well for the most part. There's a couple of the chase scenes where I think you can see the bleeding on the actors.
Right.
But apart from that, I think most of it blends incredibly, incredibly well. I think the VFX work is tremendous in this film, with the exception of one thing.
Go on.
The day for night shots are fucking appalling.
When they're in the what do you call it? Marsh, the quagmire. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And it's so
appalling. Strong word. I noticed it. I thought they're probably doing day for night here, but it didn't bother me so much. And something that Wayne and I often say on our show, and I think most people would agree, is that when you're in with a film and you're not so inclined to pick it to pieces.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're being carried along by the story and the narrative and the characters, that stuff you can't just let glide by you. But when you're really pissed off and angry about a film, a la Halloween Kills, you start picking all that shit apart.
Yeah, that's right. And like it doesn't by any stretch ruin the film for me, and I think it's more just because of what I do that I noticed it so strongly. I think the one thing that saves it is that the color palette is the way it is. Everything is so oversaturated anyway. Like in those day shots, the reds are so red that even though the day for night looks incredibly blue, and I think the lighting is a little bit poor, which is kind of really what ruins it for me, at least the rest of the film is so saturated anyway that it kind of makes it a little passable. But those shots were a little bit, I don't know, for me.
The one shot where I really noticed it, and obviously not having your background or any technical knowledge whatsoever, was when the big bad guy, I've completely forgotten his name, Immortan Joe, is talking to the whole crowd, to all the people, and he's about to give them water. That shot from behind him, I saw that bleed that you're talking about, and it was quite clear that he wasn't where he was. Obviously, he wasn't. There's no way that you'd find something like that. But it particularly on the 4K cut or print, which I guess films weren't really designed for even 6 or 7 years ago. That's right. You can see that, Well,
that's the thing. I think most people forget that film is only 2K. So even films that, you know, are made for big screens, still, they're not made for 4K yet. So you do notice all that stuff. And like, these are tiny nitpicks. I think that for the most part, the blend is incredibly good. Like I said, most people wouldn't know that there are 2,700 effects shots in this film. Like,
and from one of the makings of, I can't remember which one it was, but I have a vague memory that they were sort of saying that a lot of the, like when the cars are crashing and the pieces of the cars are flying off everywhere, a lot of that stuff's the visual effects. Yeah, the cars weren't as bulked up with spikes because, you know, when you crash a car, a spike's going to go straight through someone's head or kill them. So, well, that's the thing. Where no one was injured on this film. Badly,
and anyway. That's why I think the blend is really good, is because, as I said, most of the VFX stuffs are what you call extensions. So it's not like it's shot on a green screen and the entire background is fake. They still shoot it in the desert and they just add to what's there. Like you're saying with the cars as well, just adding to them. And so it does blend really, really nicely, I must say.
Well, we got to talk about it. What about the action, Billy? What did you think of the action scenes? Particularly, you know, obviously they're all, I think, with the exception of the fight between Max Furiosa and Nux getting involved and the brides, they're all while they're on the run, while they're driving this great big rig, and it's all the fights are happening in and around that.
Yeah, they're so much fun. As I said in Cliffhanger, I'm not a big modern action film guy because I like my action with a bit of cheese. The one exception to that is anything chasey. You know, like if you're in a car doing something in a car for some reason, that just gets me going. I love it. All of the action in this film is just fun, you know, like, and it's meant to be that way too. It's really funny, even though I don't think of this as a fun action film. When you have a guy in a mask playing an electric guitar with flames coming out of it on the top of a truck, like, I mean, that's just so zany and surreal that you are your mind is like, oh wow, this is something different. You know, and even just like the visuals of Max strapped to the front of that car as it's speeding along, it's really, really fun.
I 100% agree. And I find it jaw-dropping at times just how good it looked, and that particular stunt or that explosion, like, some of those shots in this film are just absolutely melded into my mind. When I think action in the 2000s, this and John Wick are the two films I immediately go to as being the pinnacle of what action cinema has delivered to us in this era.
Yeah, I think the editing and the pacing of the editing is tremendous as well, which is what makes those action scenes work so well. Like, so often with an action scene, you can be struggling to like keep your eyes on what is happening where, particularly when there's so much movement. And that's where I think the film is really clever. There's already so much kinetic motion in the cars and the actors that the camera doesn't need to move much. Like, mostly the camera is just keeping up. You don't have a lot of spinning big motions with that camera. And I think that just really lends itself to the kind of pacing of the editing where it's not too fast but not too slow. Like, it's not like it holds on shots for a really long time or anything. but you're always
But it's not Michael Bay either.
No, that's right. Yeah, you're always aware of where the characters are and exactly what is happening with them.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. If anyone listens to our show knows, I really like a long shot. I really like the big camera movements, the big grandiose sort of, hey, look at me shots. But in this film, that would have been too much. And there are a couple of them, that sort of rack up shots to a character's face or whatever else, or over the brow or the bonnet of the war rig and whatever else. But mostly it's that locked off kind of camera here, there. But you do never lose track. And particularly on this viewing, what I realised was some things I'd missed the first 3 times I watched the movie. Like Nux's mate he survives all the way to the end. Guys and he's the one that's trying to get the car in front to be able to get in front and throw the big exploding sticks and derail the car. And so I missed all that. And he's the one who gets squished between Joe's truck and the war rig, and the car explodes, and that's when he dies. I'm like, I just thought he was some random other dude up until this particular viewing. I missed that completely. Yeah. So being able to sort of see and all the different they're not called Valkyries. I'm not sure what Furiosa's people are called, but actually being able to tell the different old ladies from each other this time around, I really appreciated too. Oh, this is the one who's a good shot, and okay, sure, the one who had the land and the seeds in her bag and all that kind of stuff. But the rest of them all were a bit interchangeable for me. But once you've seen it a few times, and I guess it's in some ways maybe it should have been obvious the first time around, but I was so caught up in the stunts and the action scenes, I kind of missed those nuances, and that's where the film gets better, not better, but holds its worth for me, because there's still something I'm finding every time I watch it, even though it is a very simple chase film.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I can see this movie, I can see myself enjoying it even more on subsequent viewings, because I think you're right. I think that there's not only would there always be something new, but there's always something. I cannot think what must have happened to me the first time I watched it. I must have been in a really, really bad mood or something, because I think there's kind of something here for whatever. If you just want mindless action, you can just shut your brain off and watch. But if you want to pay attention to, as you say, all those little details, you can do that as well. I think it's really cleverly put together.
Well, you're obviously preaching to the converted on that one.
Yeah.
What a couple of little things. Did you catch the reference to Red Dwarf, where one of the characters says, "He's a crazy smeg who eats schlenger." Like, what is that? That had to be a throwback, right? What's a smeg? What's schlenger?
Yeah, it's funny. It's really weird hearing things like that in a big film. You know what else is weird is just hearing Australian accents. It's just kind of a strange thing to hear. But I must say, it made it even stranger then. And we haven't really spoken about Charlize Theron yet.
Which we should.
I love Furiosa and I love Charlize. I'm a little confused as to why she's American in this world.
Good point. Never crossed my mind, but you're 100% right. This has to be the outback of Australia, right?
Well, it's got, everybody else has Australian accents with, the exception of Nux, who's kind of a little British.
Yeah, because he is, Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Everybody else is so very broadly Australian. All of the other brides are, so it's just a little strange.
Although Zoë Kravitz, obviously, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, she's obviously British, I think.
Yeah.
Riley Keough is American. Zoë Kravitz is American.
But they're all doing Australian accents.
Are they all doing Australian accents? Yeah, okay.
I think they are, yeah. Or at least attempting to.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, though, because it's not like when we find Furiosa's people, it's not like they're all American.
No, that
might explain her accent, because her and her mum went off and did what happened to them, which may be the subject of an upcoming film starring Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but because they did. Furiosa, she says that she was born there, right? As in, like, in this country. Yeah, so it's a little strange. I wonder what's going to happen with Anya Taylor-Joy as well. Is she going to do an American accent to match Charlize, or is she going to do her British accent?
It's a good question. Or did they just hope, again, the spectacle carries you along and you just don't care?
Yeah. So, was this the start of Charlize kind of moving into more action films?
Well, it was before Atomic Blonde, so you'd have to say yes.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at her filmography to see if she did anything sort of like this, but I think it's fantastic she could reinvent herself because she's so convincing.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
She's one of the few actors who can, I think, carry the range of, being an actual actor, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Rather than just an action star, but also can do the physicality that's required for these roles and look convincing. Like when her and Max are fighting, when her and Tom Hardy are fighting, you don't get the sense ramped up moments put aside, you don't get the sense that she's not matched for him. She holds her own. Yeah. And, it's really at the end of the day, only Nux's interference that saves probably Max's life. So, and I love the fact that when she does get Max down and has the gun against the head, there's only a moment's hesitation for dramatic effect, and bam, she pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And had it not misfired, he'd be dead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's such a great character and a great addition to this universe. I'm very keen to see more Furiosa. And Anya Taylor-Joy is great. It would be a shame, though, to not get more Charlize in this role, I think.
I know. I did read, because there's all been caught up in legal, who owns the rights and whatever else is what my understanding is, which is why we're still here 6 years later without any kind of actual sequel being made, or it's on the horizon, but not got any further, I believe, than a script. But I did hear that when it was announced it would likely be a prequel to Furiosa, that she was quite disappointed that she wouldn't get to revisit the role, because from memory, I think Charlize Theron is just about 40, or maybe just the wrong side of 40.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's only so long you can do these big, huge physical roles for before it starts to take a real impact, I would imagine, upon your health and your body.
Tell that to Liam Neeson, mate.
Oh, no. Come on now. B-Dizzle, you've seen some of his recent forays. You've seen The Ice Road or The Marksman.
They're pretty fucking bad.
They're so bad. When you have to cut 19 shots around a little fight in a lorry cabin with a much younger man just to make it look even half bad, then you're in trouble.
The same with de-aging Bobby De Niro in The Irishman. It's like, effects aside, he doesn't move like a young man.
No. And that was what really threw that one off. But I actually made that comment in my review of The Marksman. I said, I reckon you've only got 2 years, Liam, before you are De Niro in The Irishman level. So it's time to hang up the boots. And I just think Charlize Theron, and I get it, if someone kept dangling, here's $3 million for a couple of weeks' work, we'll shoot around it. You only have to do, 2 days of fight scenes. Yeah, all right, I'll probably give it a bash, but still. Yeah,
she probably is moving more into that whole Fast and Furious territory where it's action without the action work.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm the villain. I just sit there in the background and in a cage for most of the latest film.
Yeah,
and I don't actually have to do it.
She can be imposing and stuff because she has all those skills, but doesn't need to do the whole running around stuff. Yeah.
Ooh, I said she was the wrong side of 40. She's my age. Charlize Theron is only born 17 days after me. Holy crap.
Wow. So what you're saying is you've 46.
Don't tell my wife. I was having a look at her filmography. What did she do? Anything else? She did an Aeon Flux in 2005. That very well received film.
Yes, yeah. We would be remiss to not talk about the score a little deeper.
Yeah.
It's a really, really great score by Junkie XL here. This was his first foray into score work? Is that right?
It's definitely the first one I'm aware of that he did.
Yeah.
I went, who did? But I wonder if it's actually his first.
And then obviously now, very, very recognised for the Wonder Woman theme, which is fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, he actually has done a few before this. Nothing really big. He did the 300 sequel, apparently.
Right. Okay.
Apparently he helped out on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Hans Zimmer. So
interesting.
I hear a lot of Hans Zimmer in his scores.
Definitely. Yeah.
Those tribal beats, which are a really big part of this film, and indeed, I think any of his great scores, like on the recent Justice League Zack Snyder version, there's a lot of that in there as well. I think that's what I really respond to. That got to get your blood going. Yes, let's do this.
Definitely, and I think that his score is a huge part of what carries these action sequences for me as well, and it just keeps that driving momentum going, just keeps that action moving forward. It's really, really, really well executed.
There's a great, great moment when Nux jumps on. He's still a war boy at this point, and he's basically said to Joe, I can get her. I can, stick her in the back and whatever else and leave her for you and bring your brides back to you. And Joe says, no, gives him the 6-shooter and says, put a bullet in the brain and bring the war rig to a stop. And the music swells as Nux jumps on the back of the war rig and starts climbing up, but he's still got the chain from the whole blood bait thing attached to him.
Yeah.
And it snags somewhere on the truck and he just falls over and drops the gun and disappears out of shot. And the music just changes in a heartbeat just to really emphasize. It's a little of that sameness you were talking about, but it's a great moment in terms of just how much the score sells it, because otherwise it would just look really stupid.
Yeah.
I think. But with that Junkie XL score behind it, I was like, yeah, what a moment, because you really bought into like, here we go. Oh, good one.
Yeah, and I think it's not just the musicality and the composition. I think what really makes a Junkie XL score great is the arrangements, like the choices of instruments, the choices of when to sweat. You know, it's the kind of score that I wouldn't usually like. I'm actually, even though, like you said, there are a lot of similarities to a Zimmer score, I'm not a huge Zimmer fan for the most part. I think that sometimes it can really work.
Be dizzle, big goal.
But I'm much more of a John Williams guy. You know, I love a real true orchestral score for a film. I'm not so big on the electronica, and I think sometimes it really works, but sometimes for me it falls flat. And I think that Junkie XL, for me, just pips Hans Zimmer in terms of that kind of blend for me.
Okay, yeah, look, I love Hans Zimmer. I love John Williams. I guess I can appreciate all of them, but this film is the one that really sticks out for me. And in particular, the piece is Brothers in Arms, when for the first time Max and Furiosa work together when they're going through the pass.
Yeah.
And all those spiky motorbike dudes are attacking all the guys who throw the grenades down onto them, effectively the firebombs onto them. And they're having to work together to survive. And it's just the moment where they start to trust each other.
Yeah.
And the way that score swells and builds, and it's just, that is the track that I run to this day. It's awesome. All right then, Billy. So a big problem that people do who don't like this film have is they drive out somewhere and then they just drive back. Why did they bother? What's the point? Now, did that A, bother you, and B, or is it something that you got on board with as the film progresses?
That didn't bother me at all, actually. I never even really thought about it that way. I guess that's just not how I see a narrative. This is going to sound really, really lame, but it's about the journey, Paul. It's not about the destination. And I think that rings completely true in this film. Like, yes, they come back to the same physical place, but it's, you know, they've gotten rid of the big bad. They're effectively kind of saving this place. I don't see it that way at all. I'm guessing that you don't either.
No, absolutely not. But it just confounds me when I've heard that complaint from people. Why are they even leaving the film? What? Did you not follow the film at all?
Yeah.
Get attention, damn it.
I can't get behind that kind of thinking at all. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Even on my first watch where I didn't like the film, that didn't come into my head. And it's funny, you know, I say I didn't like the film. When I went to rank this on Letterboxd the other day, I'd actually given it a 7. So I must have liked it enough, even though my memory of it was bad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So at the time was maybe just compared to the effusive praise myself and people like me have given it.
Yeah, that might be more what it was. Yeah.
3.5 stars feels pretty low by comparison. Yeah.
Exactly. But even at that point, that never came through my head. I can't understand that thinking at all.
I'm very relieved. I thought that might be where we wound up today, and there might have been table flipping, and Julio would have been cackling, listening along to it, knowing that he had destroyed a wonderful thing. I'm pleased. And coming back to Junkie XL, apparently he has signed on to do the Furiosa prequel as well, so we'll get to hear more of these, hopefully, sound effects there. But yeah, cool. I think that's basically it. I'm so glad you loved it. I loved it. So that you've changed your mind. What a day. What a day for podcasting. what a day for Australia. Well done.
So, all right. Well, how do you score this film then? Is this a perfect 10 for you?
Look, it can't be, right? Because perfect means that there's nothing wrong with the film. There's nothing you would change. I think the little things we talked about, probably one other little thing I would add is I'm not a huge fan of the narration at the start. It sets the time and place in a way. Yep. But I don't know if the film needed to rely upon that. It never comes back, which I'm really pleased by.
Yeah, see, that's actually one of my bugbears. I don't mind voiceover in a film if it's consistent. One of my problems is, getting it at the start and then never again. It's clearly just for exposition. And I actually, like I said, it didn't actually bother me, and I think it works quite well. But yeah, for me, consistency is more important. But
yeah, I guess it was a shorthand version of, and it is very effective, very quick. Like, the world fell, and we get those shots of nuclear bombs going off and things being destroyed and whatever else. And then there's that really cool one shot at the start with the CG two-headed lizard, which tells you a lot. Tells you all you need to know. Just cruelty, he stomps on it, takes a bite out of it, mind you, and then has to jump in the car and drive away because he's being chased. So yeah, I think it's very effective. in a way, but I just don't like that crutch of narration typically myself.
Well, here's a question. What's worse? What do you prefer, I guess? Narration to start a film or text on screen to start a film?
I mean, they're both crutches, aren't they?
Yeah.
Probably text on a screen, as long as it's 1 or 2 shots screens only, just to set the place. But if you need anything more than that, you're not doing it right, script.
Yeah, I agree.
You're not well building effectively enough, and you need to put more effort into that. And one other thing I will say about the film, which I really do love, is I mentioned the costumes, but the detail of these characters, like the Bullet Town people, and I can't remember what the other people's name is, to be honest, but that guy comes out, he's got like piercings everywhere, and he's got nipple clamps on, which he's just fingering his nipples at one particular point, and he's got this massive foot. Why? None of that ever gets explained, but it's character driven enough. It sells that character in a much smaller amount of time than probably 5-minute scenes of dialogue would have done, and that's the real strength of this film, which you alluded to. I think it's the economy of elements that people really want or expect lots and lots of dialogue and exposition about. It just does it by showing you on the screen. It shows, it doesn't tell, and that's why Mad Max Fury Road, beyond its stunts, beyond its incredible characterizations, is a masterpiece. And I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10.
Fair call.
Leave it at that point.
I'm an 8, and
all right.
As I said, I can see myself enjoying this on subsequent viewings. It could go up to a 9 the next time I watch it, and you know what? I liked it enough this time that I will watch it again.
Yes, there we are. That is awesome. Again, I'm a very happy man. I'm even more pleased you asked me to come back for this one today.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thanks for hopping on. I of course, would love to have you back again in the future, anytime. So
anytime, mate. Let me know. Put the call out there, and likewise, we'll have to have you back on the show to do something where Tova doesn't torpedo your list.
That's right. I mean, last time we came on, I was the one who made us put Jay and Silent Bob as the number 10 movie crime for loitering. So,
right, maybe the wrong person torpedo the list.
All right. Well, again, I'm sure that everybody knows how to find you, but how can people find you in your excellent, excellent show?
Well, thank you again so much for having me on today, and I love your show, and I listener for life, and I hope We Watch the Things with B Dizzle with friends goes on forever. Or as long as you can get in front of a mic in any case. And you can find us just by searching the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews, and you can hear Wayne and I argue like two old people, married couple, whatever you want to call it, about lists to do with movies and television. That's basically our shtick.
Excellent. All right, well, next week I will be getting to Spider-Man No Way Home with our friend Doody Dutram from Shaken Not Nerd. And then coming up to Christmas, Topher and I will be doing a little Christmas special for you. So... little peek behind the curtains. We're a little bit in advance here, so I'm not sure what that film is yet, but I'm sure it'll be fun. And we will have smoked goose and some kind of stout, no doubt.
I like it, and it rhymes. Bonus points.
All right. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle @wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and I'll catch you next week.
See ya.